And hello. Yes, this is a pre-recorded one this time, not a live broadcast, because I discovered that it's probably better for me to do these recorded rather than live. I mean, yes, I'll still let Carlton have his appearances, but basically what it is the audio issues from the last broadcast. Yeah, if I'd been doing them pre-recorded, I could have overcome them. Alright, Carlton, you're going back on the floor. Alright, down you go. You're causing me to wash out. Alright. Anyway. So, what I'm going to talk about tonight is the booms. Now, by the booms, I mean there have been 4 periods that I can think of where role-playing and D&D specifically have had a boom in popularity. And we're going to discuss those. You figure Dungeons & Dragons itself has been around since 1974. And there have been other games around almost as long. So there's probably been multiple different large patterns of sudden popularity and then crash thereafter. Hopefully this time we won't have the crash. But anyway, to get on with it. The first one that I can think of is, well, the Satanic Panic. Yeah, I know. It's kind of odd that something that was intended to destroy Dungeons & Dragons instead helped it. Well, the truth is, what happened there? Yes, there were a lot of people who were heavily against Dungeons & Dragons, saying, "It's the work of the devil," and other ridiculous things. But there were also a lot of people that were like my parents. And they basically said, hello, number one, this is a game. Pencil and paper and imagination, that's all there is to it. There's no worship involved. Number two, the devils and demons you're so scared of are the things you're fighting against. Yeah. Anyway, what the Satanic Panic did, it gave D&D attention. People who would have never heard of the game suddenly did because of its exposure in the media, because of all the stories about, "My son plays D&D and I'm scared he's gonna go to hell," and similar things. Yeah. So in the end, the Satanic Panic helped D&D. Now the second big boom was in the 90s, and it was the rise of the storytelling game. And by that, I don't mean the general playstyle, I mean the storyteller games by White Wolf. Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Changeling the Dreaming, the whole morass of the World of Darkness. What it did for gaming was it introduced the concept of gaming to a whole new audience. In this case, the goths. Now, there's nothing wrong with being goth. I mean, just because you're always wearing black doesn't mean anything. Pure coincidence. But it was a group of people that would not have played D&D. It's not their bag, not their thing. Vampire, however, there you go. And after having been exposed to a game that fit their interests, they started to veer off into other systems. May not have been exactly within that spectrum, but it was, they were games like, later on, games like L5R, Legend of Five Rings, and 7C. Games that they may not have thought of, but hey, there's more than just D&D out there. Show us. The next major boom was the Open Gaming License, OGL, the generic D20 system. This came along with, number one, a reboot of the Dungeons & Dragons system with 3rd edition and later the tweak into 3.5. But what it meant was if you wanted to create your own role-playing game, well, hey, you don't have to make your own system. We got one right here. Just go ahead and put this little D20 mark on your game and you're good to go. You just need to provide your own genre-specific rules and your own critters and classes, and you're on. On the one hand, this was good for a lot of genres. I mean, the D20 system works pretty well for high fantasy or high sci-fi, science opera, the kind of genre where it goes from peasant to dark overlord of 1,000 worlds facing off against the great chosen one champion. Against other genres, though, or in other genres, not so much. You'd have a very hard time successfully doing a superhero game. People tried, and they were okay, but the only ones that really survived that time period ended up making their own system, or tweaking the D20 system so much it was almost unrecognizable. And the last boom is the one we're currently in the middle of. I'm calling it the Matt Mercer boom. Basically, unlike before, geek culture is now pop culture. We have, Game of Thrones, one of the most successful television shows of all time. We have Marvel movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, obliterating box office records. We have YouTube. And with YouTube comes people doing things on video that never would have been accepted on your typical network, like Critical Role, Dice Camera Action, that sort of thing. And so now people get to see Dungeons & Dragons being played right there, live, in front of them, on Twitch, and then later on YouTube. And they find out it's not what they thought it was. Well, it sometimes is, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that old Summoner Geeks video. If you're not familiar with Summoner Geeks, put it up in the search bar after the video's over, and Summoner Geeks. On the one hand, I've been in games like that. On the other, thankfully few and far between. Anyway, now there is a drawback to the Matt Mercer effect. People will go to their friendly local game store, FLGS, and go to their D&D Encounters night, which is, a lot of game stores have this. It's open for anyone who wants to walk in, D&D. Well, they'll go, and they'll expect it to be exactly like, well, for the sake of argument, Critical Role. They'll expect the Game Master to be just as creative, dynamic, and ability to do the voices of Matt Mercer. And no. You can find someone who can do the voices, but they're not going to be as creative or as improvisational. You can find someone as creative, but they're not going to do the voices. But more often than not, you're going to find someone who's not quite as creative, not quite as able to do the voices, or maybe even doesn't try. And that's just your good, standard, average Game Master. Now, 5th edition does make it easier to bring new people in. But when these people are expecting godlike performance, and you're just John Smith from 4762 Snow Avenue, yeah, you're not going to be able to do what they're wanting to do. And it gets them frustrated. And they get a bad taste in their mouth and they stop playing and they leave and they never come back. To be fair, those people were wanting something that you get once in a lifetime. I mean, I've had game masters that I would consider on par with Matt Mercer. Once or twice. I've had game masters that were utter nightmares, but most often I've had them that were pretty solid. My current game masters are pretty solid. I've run games. I like to think I was pretty solid. I may not have been Matt Mercer, but I hope I wasn't a complete disaster. Anyway, all of this in the public eye and presented positively, and that's the key, presented positively, has been the cause of what I think is the biggest boom in Dungeons & Dragons since it came out. Alright, I'd like to thank you for watching this video, and say goodbye to Carlton. And I'd also like to ask, don't forget to like, subscribe, and bell icon. It's the usual thing. And I'll be going ahead and saying goodnight. So, bye-bye.